Tonight, return to Queen's Park. The legislature is back in session with the Ford government introducing a new bill to transform healthcare.
There are patients who are waiting too long for services that can be done safely in community, and we want to give them that opportunity.
The new legislation aiming to reduce wait times for certain surgical procedures, but not everyone agrees it's the way to go. The PC is also facing tough questions about plans to develop the green belt. Plus, it's calm now, but not for long. The city and much of southern Ontario under a winter storm warning. Snow, ice pellets, and freezing rain will tell you what and how much to expect. And
it's actually shocking. So we turn down millions of dollars in work every month.
Construction. It's an industry in desperate need of workers who will fill the gap as the province looks to build 1.5 million homes over the next decade. Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. The Ontario legislature is back in session. One of the top agenda items for the government today, introducing a bill that aims to transform healthcare by expanding the use of private clinics in order to reduce surgery wait times. Lorena Redekop has details on what's being done and why the opposition is concerned.
This afternoon, the health minister first presented her bill on bringing in changes to the healthcare system, including moving hip and knee surgeries out of hospitals and into private clinics, some for profit.
There are patients who are waiting too long for services that can be done safely in community, and we want to give them that opportunity.
Under the bill, any surgical or diagnostic centers would have to integrate with hospitals and other healthcare settings. Doctors working at these clinics must also have hospital privileges, one way of trying to ensure they don't get poached from the public system. But there's no language specific to nurses, already in short supply.
Any suggestion that we take HHR, Health Human Resources, away from one sector to add to another? No, absolutely not.
The bill says clinics that apply will have to map out their staffing plan. The opposition isn't convinced.
There is nothing in this legislation that actually prevents the siphoning off of workers. You know, these guardrails that the Minister of Health just talked about, they do not exist.
The health minister promises strong oversight with inspections of clinics, though there's been no decision yet on how they'll be regulated or by whom.
But immediately, we have concerns about the lack of oversight. The fact that the minister stood here and said that this is to be determined, this is concerning to us.
Patients using private clinics will be able to go to the patient ombudsman with any problems. The Liberals' health critic, a former emergency room doctor, wanted to see more solutions to better fund home care, long-term care, and primary care.
But instead, we're not doing that. Instead, what we're doing is we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater and moving to a very significant and dramatic pivot towards moving procedures out of hospitals.
Earlier, the Premier responded to an NDP question, raising concerns about the cap on nurses' wages and ER closures.
We're fixing health care, and you're blocking health care every step of the way.
He gave the example of pharmacists, able to treat more patients with common illnesses, and says last month, 40,000 people received assessments.
The opposition wants to have endless debates about our health care system, Mr. Speaker, but the people of Ontario just want to make sure they see action happening, and that's exactly what we're doing.
It's unclear how quickly the government could move this bill through the House, but with their majority, there's almost no question it will pass. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
As debate resumed in the legislature, so did the protests against the Ford government's decision to develop parts of the protected Greenbelt. Chris Glover has more on that.
A couple dozen demonstrators rallied on the steps of Queen's Park today.
I think we have to use every tool in our tool belt.
Filling their tool belts with signs and voices to protect the green belt. Their angry Doug Ford went back on this campaign promise from 2018.
Unequivocally, we won't touch the green belt.
Ford's government is now allowing housing development on some of the protected environmental area.
This is the very first time I've come out for a public demonstration like this. I've never done this before, and so I'm a little pumped, yeah.
Protesters watched as Marit Stiles took aim at Doug Ford's connections with developers, who can now build on the Greenbelt for her first 5 minutes in question period officially as the opposition leader.
This is not about the Premier's family, it is about the Premier's behavior. It's about accountability and the integrity of the office that he holds.
Grilling Ford directly for those developers who attended a pre-wedding event for Ford's daughter.
My family is separate than the political process.
Ford, though, continuing to deflect.
This event was cleared by the Integrity Commissioner.
Did anyone in the Premier's office or any other government staff have a role in making the invitation list for this family fundraiser?
The Premier has already responded to that.
Ford's House leader pouncing on the barrage of questions to tout the benefits of more housing supply on the Greenbelt.
Yes, we're also fighting to ensure that young families can afford to get their first homes.
You want affordable housing? Don't build luxury urban sprawl. Let's start there.
After the showdown inside,
it is not over.
The Green Party leader rallied protesters outside.
Building affordable housing is not a partisan attack or a choice, it's a necessity, and the government fails to understand that. And I think now, seeing it in question period just so visibly bare, their inability to just even acknowledge the issue, it's motivating.
Many of them vowing to continue pushing for Greenbelt protection. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Mike Schreiner says he wants to continue building a green movement in Ontario, so he's staying on as leader of the party.
I got 2 young daughters, and I'm worried about their future. I'm worried about the climate they're going to inherit. That's why I came to this place, and that's what I'm going to continue to do, fighting in this place as the Ontario Green leader.
Schreiner is speaking to reporters at Queen's Park today. His comments come a few weeks after 40 Liberals signed an open letter urging Schreiner to consider a bid to lead the Ontario Liberal Party. However, after taking time to speak with Green Party members and his constituents in Guelph, Schreiner says he will not be crossing the floor. 2 people were rushed to hospital this afternoon after a shooting in North York. It happened near Jane Street and Shoreham Court, south of Steeles, just before 4 p.m. 2 men were transported to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police say the suspect fled the area in a black SUV. A Milton man who has been charged with second-degree murder in connection with a shooting over the weekend made his first court appearance this morning. As Greg Ross reports, his lawyer maintains he is innocent and was just defending himself from intruders who broke into his home.
22-year-old Ali Mian, who is facing a second-degree murder charge, made a brief court appearance at this Milton court this morning.
Got adjourned to Thursday. We're just waiting to get a date in Superior Court for a bail hearing.
Jag Verk is the lawyer representing Mian. He says early Sunday morning, several armed men broke into his client's house on Gibson Crescent in Milton, where he lives with his mother. Verk says his client then shot and killed one of the intruders in self-defense.
It's a home invasion, intruders in his house, armed, dangerous, and he protected himself and his mother.
It happened at about 5 o'clock on Sunday morning when many of the residents in this neighborhood were still asleep. This neighbor says it woke him up.
There was like 1 to 4 shots we heard.
Police were still on scene today. The front door of the home is badly damaged and a bullet hole can be seen in one of the rear windows. Police say another man was arrested at the scene and is facing charges for break and enter as well as possession of a firearm. Police are still looking for 3 other suspects.
It's not what you would expect, not in neighborhood, in any other neighborhood, like anywhere.
Several neighbors tell us there was another incident just days before. According to this woman, who didn't want to be identified out of concern for her safety, Mian's mother showed her security video of men wearing hoodies and masks who were prowling around the home.
2 kids going in our backyard and then running out because they had their dog in the backyard.
Police say on Sunday the suspects fled in a white Dodge Charger. At this point, the motive behind the home invasion is still not clear.
He definitely has a right to defend himself, and that's going to be his defense. Obviously, his self-defense, right?
I spoke with a criminal defense lawyer today who told me somebody breaking into your home does not necessarily constitute the use of lethal force. He said in Canada, self-defense has to be reasonable in the circumstance. Whether or not it was reasonable in this case is now up to a court to decide. Mian has another court appearance scheduled for Thursday. Greg Ross, CBC News, Milton.
Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first check on your forecast. And Colette, we're about to be hit with some significant winter weather.
Yes, Kelda, we've got quite a bit of winter coming back in to have an impact on us through midweek, and we're looking at a winter storm warning for the city. We're included in this, but all the areas you can see in red, it extends into eastern Ontario, and that has to do with the amount of snowfall, but also likely some ice mixing in there, ice pellets, even freezing rain at times. And speaking of freezing rain, well, we have the freezing rain warning through the Niagara region. It comes around towards the west end of Lake Ontario, and it extends back towards Windsor. So we need to look at the timing with this thing and as it will be coming in. So flurries earlier in the day, sure, a little bit of light mixing, but you'll notice this more towards later morning, making its way into southwestern Ontario and to the GTA. It's not likely to really get going until we get into the later afternoon hours, and then it carries on as that snowfall and then getting into that mixing. The more mixing we get actually will bring the snowfall totals down. The less mixing, the higher those snowfall totals, because there's certainly going to be a band where we're going to be seeing some heavier amounts, and with extended periods of freezing rain, we get into that risk of the ice building up and the potential for power outages. I'll have more on this coming up, but your forecast overnight tonight, -3, and then freezing for your daytime high tomorrow.
Thanks so much, Colette. Leslieville is a neighborhood undergoing some big changes, with several mid-rise buildings being constructed along Queen Street East. And while many are welcoming the increased density, one project hoping to replace a community landmark is drawing some concern. Dale Manukduk has more.
Today, 1233 Queen Street East doesn't look like much. It's tattered, locked up, and serves as a canvas for graffiti. But one developer is hoping to change all of that and build a 9-story mixed-use building.
I can understand a main street like this, right, that there is a need for it.
As long as they don't go any higher than that. I mean, I really appreciate my view of the CN Tower that I can see from my bedroom.
If approved, it would be the latest in a few city blocks that is rapidly changing the neighborhood.
Still the old people is here, but we see a lot of new people around here.
Jaya Balasunthram Krishnaraja has worked at the local butcher and grocer for 25 years and took ownership 4 months ago.
We want to have more people around here, more actions, and more people moving around, and we get more business.
The proposed site for the new building holds a special place in the hearts of those in Leslieville. The building used to be the home of Lee Food Products for 73 years, which produces the popular China Lily soy sauce brand. It moved operations to Scarborough in 2020. While the building was never given heritage status, the developer is planning to incorporate a cultural homage. That was one issue brought up in a virtual community consultation tonight. Another one, parking.
24 spots for a building of this size is crazy.
And the height. The area has a policy for 6-story buildings that was adopted in 2016, but the city argues that times have changed.
This is part of a mid-rise area where we're looking for density. We're not trying to create condo canyons on every single main street, but we are looking for density that can attract and support new residents.
The building is set to have 132 dwellings, of which over 40% will be 3- and 4-bedroom units. However, none are designated as affordable. Meanwhile, parking spaces for the proposal have increased from 10 to 24. It's still a small number compared to the total units. However, the city and developers say that transit-supported housing, a provincial priority, will reduce traffic and reliance on single-user vehicles. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
The Up Express has returned to normal service after 2 weeks of operating at reduced capacity.
When you're running late, you want every 15 minutes for sure.
Every 15 minutes is what passengers can expect again starting today. Earlier this month, Metrolinx discovered hairline cracks in the brake discs on some of its Up Express trains. The affected trains immediately were pulled from service. With repairs now complete, trains are back to running on its regular schedule. Welcome back. CBC Toronto kicked off a year-long series last month, Workers Wanted, looking into Ontario's labour shortage. Tonight, Patrick Swadden dives into the construction industry, which is facing extreme uncertainty as the province looks to desperately meet growing housing demand over the next decade.
It's just past 10 a.m. and the M² contracting crew is hard at work in a gutted-out Toronto home. A handful of Ontario's skilled tradespeople making their buck in an industry desperately in need of workers.
What is the labor market right now like in construction?
Tight. I've never seen in my entire career such a tight labor market ever.
The company's president, Mike Lawrence, says it's exhausting hunting for new workers. But without enough of them, he's losing business.
It's actually shocking. So we turn down millions of dollars in work every month.
And he isn't kidding. Walk through almost any Toronto neighborhood and you'll see construction. Much of it because we need housing. Ontario wants 1.5 million homes built over the next decade, but the government says we're short 100,000 skilled trade workers to do it. And meanwhile, experts are saying the labor shortage is costing the economy $13 billion a year. So, where are all these workers we so desperately need? Industry experts say baby boomers are retiring from the industry in numbers, and not enough young people are interested in those jobs.
It's not so much that young people are getting steered away from the skilled trades. It's just that the pathways really aren't there to the extent that they should be.
Pathways like the ones these students at Central Tech are taking. They're learning valuable skills in the classroom they can use on job sites next month. The high school has programs that give students a chance to sample trades. But Lyle says the education system doesn't necessarily steer students in that direction.
We call it the third wall sometimes in the guidance offices. You got the college wall, you got the university wall. Where's the skilled trades wall? Well, it doesn't exist.
And that matters for companies like M Squared. They need new apprentices to do the work, and apprentices need them for on-the-job training. Without enough people completing apprenticeship programs, the industry isn't replacing the retiring workers.
If you look forward another 5 or 10 years, there's no way there's going to be the apprentices in the program available to fill the roles that the aging population is leaving right now.
And while Ontario is beginning to make investments in skilled trade education, many say decades of prioritizing college and university career paths has left us without enough people who can build. Industry leaders say we also need to look outside our borders. While Canada brought in an historic number of immigrants over the last 2 years,
as a percentage of the total basket of immigrants, put it that way, that come to Canada, we need more of them to have skilled trades.
Nikos Diamantopoulos is one of those foreign workers who came to Canada on a work permit. He's spraying insulation at a site in Scarborough. Along with framing, masonry, bricklaying, and ironwork, it's one of the more labor-intensive trades.
I want to stay here. I like Canada. I want to work here.
But getting a permanent residency is another hurdle. The process isn't easy, and there are significant fees. Nikos' boss says a lot of his employees face government red tape. At a time when he needs workers more than ever, most don't have papers.
If 80% of these people that were applying or saying they can work for us had SIN numbers, I mean, we wouldn't have an issue. I believe there's a lot of undocumented workers, and they're out there. Let's get them in the system.
It's a problem Ontario continues to grapple with. We
need to act now. Especially if we have these milestones we want to hit in the province of Ontario. That's a lot of dwellings to be built within our province and all of Canada. And you're going to need hands to do it.
Patrick Swadden, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette, after a stretch of pretty mild temperatures, things are about to change tomorrow.
Well, Kelda, yes, I know we've had a mild winter to date, but this is going to be anything but. It's not spring-like, it's winter-like. Winter storm warning in place, and the city included in this, and also freezing rain warnings for some slippery conditions. When it's ice pellets, it freezes before it reaches the ground, but that can still build up. It also hurts when it hits you against any exposed skin. And then with the freezing rain, you know, that's freezing on contact, and that too builds up layer after layer after layer. An extended period of icing possible, and then that can lead us to our power outages. And the concern there is that at the end of the week, we have some cold air pushing in. So we would definitely want to get anything like that addressed so that everyone has heat towards the end of the week when those temperatures plummet. It's not going to last that long, but still some much colder air is going to move in. So just taking you through the timeline with this, starting as some light flurries or a bit of mixing in the morning hours into southwestern Ontario, and some flurries may make their way into the Golden Horseshoe area too, but really it doesn't get going through here until we get in some snow into the later afternoon hours, and then we'll have some periods of heavy snow before it changes over to likely a mix with ice pellets, whereas it's an extended period of freezing rain back through the Niagara region towards southwestern Ontario. Windsor, Lakeshore area, you may see some mixing with rain there, and that could keep the amount of accretion of ice down for you. So it's a really, really tight forecast here in terms of what will be happening if you're on that fine line between snow and ice pellets or between freezing rain and rainfall. But what we do know is things will not be good for travel tomorrow, especially second half of the day and overnight Wednesday and into Thursday as well. The potential for more than 15 centimeters, 15 to 20 centimeters of snowfall through there, and there's really this whole area where you get into the purples with the target for ice buildup or seeing that freezing rain ice accretion. For your Wednesday, with that snow right around 0, and that's one of the problems, is that temperature being right around freezing, and also looking at what happens with the temperature of the air just above the surface. Lingering into Thursday morning, it should really be tapering off, but there's still the potential, even in the afternoon, for some freezing drizzle or freezing rain around for that commute as well, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. Finally tonight, with tears in their eyes, crowds waved goodbye to a very stoic celebrity at the Tokyo Zoo today. Tried to attend the goodbye party for this giant panda. Xiang has been a star at the Tokyo Zoo since she was born in 2017. Today, she heads back to China. Like the rest of her species, she prefers to be alone and doesn't like the company of other pandas. And that's one of the reasons giant pandas are so hard to breed. And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Maribel Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.